Okay, well, awesome. Welcome everyone to Market Newsflow. Today, session 6 on Monday, September 14th. Today was a quite exciting day, especially with respect to M&A activity. So that's what we're going to kick off our discussion today with merger mania. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see the global co-head of M&A at Citigroup, Mark Schaffer, who came on Bloomberg today to talk about how it was all about liquidity in March and everyone wanted to pull down their revolvers and issue as much debt in the markets as possible. But now it's back to strategy. CEOs have things they want to accomplish, and they're willing to put money to work to make that happen. The regulatory environment has gotten generally tougher, and concerns over antitrust committee on foreign investments, which is known as the CFIUS in the United States, and ESG are now front of mind. And personally, I think it's about high time that they've started to look into more ESG concerns. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Considering government intervention, there are two deals that you'll see on your right that are going to be affected by the government's role, one in the United States and the other in the United Kingdom. Considering Oracle and TikTok, that's obviously front of mind, considering ByteDance's massive platform that has a huge following of over 81 million users in the United States alone, as well as 380 million in India, 60 million in Brazil, and a whole host more in China. Oracle seems to have won the bid for the United States operations of TikTok, and they want to use it for the data. Their stock was halted at the open and ended up a little bit over 4.5% on the day. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin expects a security review this week, and Trump will also have to review it directly due to his notion of the executive order. In addition, Walmart may still be involved in this deal as part of the syndicate. Sorry, I'm getting a couple of chats. Okay, perfect. So Walmart may still stay involved in this deal as part of the syndicate. There are two main issues to consider with regard to selling the United States portions of ByteDance's platform, TikTok. With regard to privacy, obviously that is front of mind. Americans have this inherent value that they want to respect their privacy. Obviously, it's not directly enumerated in the Constitution, but it's something that's become front of mind and reestablished through many legal doctrines. With respect to the second issue, the potential for censorship is incredibly terrifying. The TikTok platform has served as a vector for informal operations, and how it can be used to share misinformation from Beijing can be done in countless and innumerable ways. Considering things that they've done so far, where they've blocked hashtags and done something called shadow banning, where the hashtag Putin is a thief or anything that is in support of LGBT rights in Russia has been shadow banned on TikTok. So people can post it with the hashtag, but if it has that hashtag, it will not be shown publicly. And the person that posted it will not know that it didn't get shown publicly. And so you have this idea of shadow banning. For platforms like Facebook or Twitter, they might ban content, but they never shadow ban it. So that's a kind of terrifying thought to the idea of free speech and the American idea of the First Amendment. Considering the involvement between ByteDance and the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, they have enormous leverage over ByteDance. And there's this concern over the promotion of preferential content. Before the heinous acts committed by police officers with George Floyd in the United States, the platform was considered to be apolitical. However, following that, as we know, as millennials and young people oftentimes involved in the platform, it has become very apparent that this can be and is oftentimes used for political speech and is no longer apolitical. This is a potential problem that lies ahead. Considering other M&A activity, we see on the right-hand side of our screen SoftBank's ARM and NVIDIA going through a merger. SoftBank is selling ARM to NVIDIA for $40 billion. This deal was announced Sunday as part of the whopping $69 billion of M&A that has been announced this week alone. And yes, it is only Monday. So between Sunday and Monday, we've had this whopping $69 billion US of merger mania. Considering this SoftBank deal, we see that there's $21.5 billion in NVIDIA stock, $12 billion in cash, and $2 billion of which is payable at signing. As mentioned before, the United Kingdom's government will play a role, and this goes along with the theme of increased government intervention in M&A activity. Britain is set to impose strict terms, including the protection of jobs and maintaining these UK headquarters. With this in mind, it seems like this deal is going to take at least a year to close. Considering the extended duration of closings on things like the T-Mobile deal in the US, considering antitrust regulations, pushing that up to nearly 2 years, see government intervention really delaying these processes. In addition, for a little bit of background, ARM designs architecture for mobile chips used in iPhone and Android devices. SoftBank bought ARM for $31.4 billion in 2016. They're now selling it for that $40 billion figure. This sale is done in part, obviously, because it's going to be profitable, but also because SoftBank is in dire need to raise cash after losing a lot of cash in the WeWork and Uber investments, which have been very high profile, given the cash burn of those companies. SoftBank also announced that it would sell $12 billion of its T-Mobile stake earlier in the summer, which goes along with the theme that they need money to use in these venture investments, that they need these companies to have the resources to achieve this cash flow positive concept. NVIDIA has been doing amazingly well, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that they've announced a 46% growth in revenue expected for their third quarter earnings, which should come out soon. That'll be a good one to watch. Merck is investing $1 billion in Seattle Genetics to collaborate on breast cancer treatments. They're buying 5 million shares, 2.9% of all shares outstanding, for a total of $200 a share, or for $200 each share, totaling $1 billion altogether. Merck was up about 30 basis points on the news, and seeing that Seattle Genetics closed at about 150 on Friday, seeing that they're going to be buying it at 200, obviously this acquires premium. We see this stock move up a whopping 14.5% today. On the bottom right of your screen, you'll see the PSA and Fiat Chrysler merger. They have decided to overhaul terms of their 50 billion euro merger, with the expected dividend changing. This expected dividend to these FCA shareholders, the Fiat Chrysler shareholders, has been cut from 5.5 billion euros to a mere 2.9 billion, which is affecting the terms and the composition of the deal between stock and cash. And this is in order to keep cash inside the new company, Stellantis. And obviously, this is not going over too well. They are striving to become the fourth largest car maker in the world, overtaking General Motors and Hyundai Kia. That pretty much covers it for the high-profile M&A. But again, just want to tell you that figure, $69 billion of M&A activity announced in the last 2 days. In addition, we have seen talks between UBS and Credit Suisse about the possibility of merging. That's very informal, but the chairman of UBS has mentioned that he is very interested. Again, no formal talks yet, but that would be a huge one to watch. To move on to smaller stories of the day, first I'd like to mention that it's not surprising that the Democrats and Republicans could not come to a deal on a new round of fiscal stimulus today. The Republicans, in line with their more fiscally conservative beliefs, wanted a smaller package running between, I think, $500 to $700 million, but considering that the Democrats wanted a whopping $2.5 billion, there was just too much room to run, and that was not going to get through the House and Senate. The gold futures gained a little bit over 1% on the continued weakness of the dollar, given the stimulus that's coming through the monetary regime of the Federal Reserve. And considering the stories of the day that you see on your screen right now, on the left-hand side, I guess just a touch on the right, we see markets up slightly, nothing too noticeable, a little bit over 1.25%. The S&P, 1% on the Dow, and about 80 basis points out in Asia. Considering the stories, we see Nikola had an SEC probe. This was very interesting. And considering that they ended up opening down 8%, and the SEC is looking into the merits of the September 12th report that alleged that investors were being deceived and the company was painting a much rosier picture than what their actual future cash flow potential and probability of the timeframes of their future cash flows are actually going to be. Nikola is an EV company where they make electric vehicles, electric cars, And obviously, similar in line to the thought process of a biotech company, the revenue is not going to come for a while. And they were accused of misrepresenting the information, ended up down about 8% on the day, similar to where they opened. However, the General Motors CEO, which took a huge stake a couple days ago, said that they are defending the Nikola partnership, and the Nikola then decided to put out a stronger statement denying the claims today from the short seller. To touch on a couple of things in the middle, we see Uber borrowing $500 million in the junk markets in the United States. They sold their 2028 6.25% debt, so that's 625 basis points, fixed rate notes to redeem an equal amount of 2023 750 basis point notes. So they are lowering their cost of funds. They were going out further in tenors, and by doing this, they're borrowing $500 million to refinance at this record low rate. So this is in line with the trends that we've seen in the junk bond markets recently, with issuance over $300 billion for the first time since 2013. And yes, we are only in September, so we have a lot of room left to run, and we could break an annual record here as well. Stephen Cohen, the prominent leader of Point72 and the famed investor who pleaded guilty to insider trading with his firm Stephen A. Cohen Capital, paid a little bit over $1.8 billion of fines for that scandal, is serving and also has served as an inspiration to Bobby Axelrod in the very popular HBO show Billions, has officially decided that he will be getting the Mets. This comes after a 9-month saga, and terms still need to be approved by other MLB owners, but we're pretty much there. And this has valued the Mets at a record $2.4 billion. So that's a lot for a baseball team. Also, considering the last thing you'll see on the slide, we would like to talk about Brexit. Risk reversals are trading like they did the last two times there was a probable no deal outcome. This is indicative of the options markets thinking that a no deal is going to be likely, which means a hard Brexit, a hard exit from the European Union without another plan in mind. In addition, members of parliaments are now voting on the internal market bill to override the crucial aspects of the agreement with Brussels and Northern Ireland in respect to the questions over state aid. Boris Johnson's government does have a hefty majority, so it'll be interesting to see if the deal gets passed. It seems like the financial markets are indicating this possibility of a no-deal Brexit, and also we've seen this the weaker pound trend continue. So that is in respect to this idea of a no-deal Brexit possibly occurring, which obviously, seeing that the United Kingdom is the biggest exporter, that's really going to hurt the trade balance for the United Kingdom. Looking ahead to tomorrow and beyond, we see 4 things that we'd like to mention. We have this big data dump from the Chinese economy on Tuesday morning. So we'll see it come out Tuesday morning in Asia. So we'll see it come out in the next couple hours here. We've been seeing the yen grind further lower. So that means a strengthening yen, which is trading around about 6.8, 6.81 right now. Fewer people, and that's the offshore rate because that's not the one that's pegged. Fewer people are hedging on this weaker yen if you look at the options activity. So we're accepting that the dollar is on a medium-term downtrend and trading accordingly. The dollar is a generally weaker currency, and the PBOC is staying safe and actually is comparatively hawkish, while the Fed is incredibly dovish with monetary policy. Looking at the data that's about to come out, we see a lot of consumer sentiment data, consumer figures, but the one that I'm going to be looking to is the industrial production data. So that'll be interesting because obviously China is a huge exporter of a lot of raw materials, a lot of goods that go to foreign countries. So that'll be a good indicator of demand from Chinese produced goods. In addition, Asia and Australia are opening about flat. Yeah, that's still true. We're around 20 basis points each way right now. So we're pretty much flat in the morning. We'll see if any data is surprising. Probably won't be. Considering the last thing you see, the Bank of Japan and Bank of England rate decisions are on Thursday, and both monetary policy institutions, both central banks, are expected to hold the rates constant. It'll be a question of what language they decide to use and how that'll be into make things clearer for the future. But again, two incredibly dovish central banks in an incredibly dovish world in a low rate environment. So things are probably expected to stay relatively similar. So with that in mind, I'd love to see you tomorrow. But in the meantime, love to answer any questions you may have. I'll turn off the recording now so we can dive right into the discussion.